Yeah.
You know, imagine that. I just find it fascinating. So it's, you know, it really is a multifaceted deal of what we see here, and I think, to me, one of the amazing things about wine is it almost doesn't matter where you're coming from. One can relate to wine. Are you way into science? Are you way into business? Are you way into art? Do you love to travel? Are you a foodie? Like what's your bag? You know, wine can speak to that.
We're probably all the above.
Right? I mean, well, right, yeah, right. Check me off on it. Yeah, my list was deliberate there. Let's say, you know. But I think that wine can speak to it. You know, I've worked in places before where the language barrier is severe, but yet we can still communicate through wine. I mean, you can sort of, without words, talk about color and aromatics, and, you know, I mean, tannin is tannin. You can kind of give gestures for it, and acidity, and all that kind of stuff. Even finish as well. So yeah, this it's pretty exciting. You know, the Napa Valley has really enjoyed, I think, as of late, a string of amazing vintages. And I don't mean to sort of blanket the whole valley, because clearly, you know, the mountains across the way are very different from what we have right here, which is different from the mountains immediately behind us. But I think, you know, things are looking really promising.
I usually, you know, when I give tastings, I usually tell people that California really has not had a bad vintage in a long time, with good, very good, and great vintages. One of the reasons, and I think Dave, and you may also know, like in Bordeaux, they're not allowed to water. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we are, in addition to the fact that our weather patterns are generally more consistent than they have, we're able to water when necessary. Whereas Bordeaux, they can't. So that's one of the reasons why their vintages and the quality of the vintages tend to go much further up and down.
Yeah. Although there is the chapitalization reverse as well. So we've got sunshine. It's adding sugar, right? So really, what this conversation stems from, I think, is continental versus maritime weather, right? So it's continental weather in Bordeaux, and it's coming down, I guess, really sort of from the Alps in general. We get it from the coast. So our weather's moderated by the water, and all the big wine regions around have big bodies of water next to them. Whether that's the river through the Rhine, through the Rhone even, you know, the ocean here. I mean, there's a million examples. You know, upstate New York has Finger Lakes. You know, I mean, so there's always a big body of water. Also, the other contributing factor, I think, that's really important that nobody really seems to talk about that much to the success of wine-producing areas, you have to have an outlet. You have to have an outlet to sell your wares, right? So, I mean, Napa, Sonoma, we all have San Francisco. Santa Barbara has Los Angeles. Bordeaux has Paris. I don't know that, you know, if Bordeaux was in a more isolated region, that it really would have been as successful as it has been. You really have to have a place to get your wines out there. It's very difficult to be the renegade winemaker. You know, I respect it tons, but when you are out there 30 minutes from your nearest neighbor, who may or may not be a winery, and it's the middle of harvest and your pump breaks down, okay. Now what? And now what? Either you have a boatload of spare parts, or, you know, you're on a big time out, which is not appropriate in the middle of harvest. So, you know, and there's a couple here in California. I think, you know, a guy like Josh Jensen comes to mind from Calera. You know, I mean, he's way up there. Yeah, great guy, making great wines, and has for a really long time.
And hasn't changed anything about his style.
Changed a bit.
No.
Hasn't changed a bit.
Exactly the same.
No, really true to form. Very difficult to be out there like that. You know, and you know, he's got big personality, and I think his wines show it. You know, yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah, so.
I've got another question just relating
please.
to the vineyard, and notice that these are really super tiny. 2 weeks ago, did these exist yet?
These were out, right? So
when did they start, and then what's the progression?
So, you know, vines are pretty interesting. The fruit itself will always occur in about the first 2 to 5 positions on the shoot, right? So you're never really going to get primary fruit sources up top. They're all at the bottom, which is one of the advantages of vertical shoot positioning, right? You train your shoots up onto a trellis, and then you have a fruit zone that hangs in there. In this capacity, what it would be is, again, this idea of the wagon wheel, that if you prune appropriately and open up the middle of the head, you'll get that same fruit zone, but it's in a circular fashion. And so we've not yet come into flowering. These will open up. Vines, interestingly enough, are self-pollinating, for whatever that's worth, right? And then the berries will form, you know, and Back to this conversation of irrigation, this is a really interesting thing as well, because everybody, generally speaking, says no irrigation after veraison, right? That's the big no-no, because the vines suck up the water and they, in theory, put it into the veraison is when the vine sort of shifts gears and cell division is done, and it's now time to color up the fruit, get the sugar development in, make its fruit appealing for takeaway, because the fruit encompasses the seed.
Sometimes these guys talk at a level way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was unintentional. Yeah, it's the package for it's a reproductive package for the fruit, or for the seed. Make it beautiful, make it sweet, make it tasty, and make it go somewhere else. To proliferate. I come to it from a totally different take on it. As you may have guessed here with regard to the conversation to these late rains, I think that if there's any time to irrigate, it's after veraison. Right? So if you irrigate during the growing season, you're promoting greater cell division. So you're going to get longer shoots, bigger canopy, bigger grapes, and bigger clusters. That doesn't yield to better concentration. That's actually just the opposite. Post-veraison, what the vine really needs is water to take in, to convert into carbohydrates for overwinter storage, so that next year it can push. Next year's fruit actually is pretty much being developed right now, which is pretty interesting. We are at the point where